All right, welcome back to the LeaderLink Podcast. This is your host, Charles Heasley, and today we're starting another mini-series, and this is going to be on why leadership training fails. And this is going to be a little bit of a sore subject for some people because well-intentioned organizations will send people to training, or they'll bring somebody to train in-house, or they'll send people to conferences, and the idea is that they're going to get something out of this, and a lot of times it falls short. And these are well-intentioned efforts, but if leadership training, this is the first reason why leadership training fails, and that is because organizations view it as a one-time check the box event. And I remember back when I was a new sergeant. I'd been a sergeant for about a year, and I was really excited to develop as a leader. If you've been following me long enough, you've heard that I was told kind of before I promoted early on that people were they were afraid to work for me, and I didn't really like that. I wanted to be a leader, not a boss. So I really took my development as a leader seriously. And so when I got put in this 3-week program called Developing Leaders for Texas Law Enforcement, I was excited. I was like, okay, great. My organization is investing in my growth as a leader. And I remember I went to my lieutenant and I said, hey, LT, what am I supposed to get out of this training? I'm really excited. Clearly the organization cares about my growth enough to not only make the financial investment, but also to make sure my shifts are covered while I'm away from patrol. So this is a big deal for the organization. And I remember her saying, Charles, since you're now a sergeant, your name is on a list. And in order to get you off of that list, you got to go to this class. In other words, explicitly saying it's a check the box program. And I was like, okay, great. But still, there's got to be something in this program that will help me as a leader. And she said, yes, pay attention, go through the class. The instructors are great, and they were phenomenal, and get what you can out of it. But just understand that some of the principles you learn may not apply to our organization. Again, well-intentioned efforts. Well-intentioned. It was a class that changed my life. One of the things that I learned most of all was the importance of self-reflection. Another thing that I learned was how to motivate individual employees. I learned how to be a resource not only for my team, but also help with intergroup conflict. I learned about culture. I learned about organizational change. I learned about all these great principles, but it was a one-time event. And so I was inspired, but then I got back to my organization and I didn't have any reinforcement. I didn't have any opportunity to practice the skills and get immediate feedback on any of them. And so I'm not saying it was a waste of time and money, because it did change my life for the better. But when leadership development is treated as a one-time event, and even a 3-week course, I still consider that pretty much a one-time event. If your goal is to inspire leaders, now this is very clear. If your goal is to inspire people, I've got no problem with a one-time event. I've been to so many keynotes where I leave and I'm like, oh, this is great. I can't wait to implement whatever idea. And then on Monday, I go back to my regular life and nothing changes. The reason is because humans are creatures of, I didn't even have to say it because you knew the word was going to be habit. Humans are creatures of habit. It is very hard to change habits, which is why a one-time event isn't going to work. It can inspire somebody, but it's not necessarily going to change habits. Now, is it going to influence one or two people to maybe internalize some of those things and make really good changes in their lead? Sure, it has that opportunity, but if your goal is to move the needle forward with everyone in that room to change behaviors, change attitudes, set them up for better success, because their success means your success as an organization. It needs to be a process. So why does leadership training fail? Well, one of the reasons why these one-time events fail, in addition to what we've already talked about, is because the people who purchase these programs, the people who bring them in-house, the reality is a lot of those senior leaders don't fully know what is being taught. And, I see this actually pretty often. And here's the key: if the next level leaders or the senior level leaders don't know what's being taught, there's no way that they can hold the participants accountable for those new behaviors. There's no way that they know how to reinforce what behaviors that they want to see repeated. And they themselves don't even know what behaviors to model based on what the program provides. So senior leadership understanding what's going on in the program, holding their next level leaders accountable to holding the participants accountable for those behaviors, all that is essential. In fact, I'm doing my dissertation right now, and the whole concept of the dissertation is, how do we evaluate the effectiveness of leadership development and the importance of senior leader support? When I was doing my lit review, this kept coming over and over and over again, how important it is for that senior level leader to hold the participants accountable. And not just the participants, but if it's the frontline leader going through the program and they report to a mid-level manager, that accountability has to cascade. And that is one of the things that I have unfortunately seen over and over again completely lacking, is that accountability. And again, going back, this is well-intentioned. I mean, organizations are spending money on leadership development, but the research that I've been doing also shows that a lot of these executives are frustrated because they don't necessarily see the return. If you go to a one-time event and you get really inspired, but then at the end of the day, it has no impact on employee engagement. It has no impact on employee retention. It has no impact on employees willing to give that discretionary effort. It has no impact on the culture and the way that people communicate with each other. I'm not saying it's a complete waste of money, because you've probably inspired at least somebody, but if the goal is true behavior change and transformation, it has to be a process. That's key. Leadership development must be a process. It takes time. It takes reinforcement. It takes accountability. It takes modeling for those behaviors and attitudes to ultimately improve. And the reality is, I have never once met a leader that says that they want to be a bad leader. I've just never met that person. Now, they might exist, but I've never met them. These people, we put them in leadership positions and they want to be good leaders. The problem is that oftentimes they're never shown the way. And so if we're going to make this investment in leadership development, let's do it right. Let's make it a process, and let's hold people accountable to those behaviors. Okay, so stop checking the box. That's the overall message of this podcast is we can't make leadership a check the box kind of activity. And here's just a few tips. Even if we are going to do just a one-day event, let's say that right now it's not in your budget to change things up. Okay, number one, get the senior leaders, get the mid-level leaders involved somehow, and let's make expectations very clear. We're putting you through this program. What is it that we want to see on the other side? So you know exactly going into it what is expected of you. The second tip that I have is actually hold people accountable to those things. When people learn a new skill, and leadership is a totally different skill than doing the work. Once you get promoted, it's a totally different thing. Those skills take time to learn. So just because somebody goes to a one-day event does not mean that they're automatically going to be an expert at all these things. I personally believe leadership is a lifelong journey, but holding them accountable, and when I say accountable, it doesn't necessarily mean who's to blame. In fact, I think accountability is way overused in that context. When I say accountability, I'm saying build people up. So these leaders are learning a new skill. Let's hold them accountable by building them up and helping them grow in that skill, whether it is time management, whether it is motivation, whether it's communication, whatever the skill that we're working on is, hold them accountable by building them up. And then the third tip that I would have is reinforce those behaviors that you want to see repeated. If you see a leader who has gone through a program and they come back and they have a better attitude, or they're taking a sincere interest in the people on their team, or they're giving them good expectations, or the morale is improved, whatever positive outcome you might see, take a moment and reinforce that. Say, great job. I see that this is going on, because people need to know that what they're doing is the right thing. And when they know that, they're going to do more of it. All right. So I hope you found this helpful. We'll see you back for the second episode in this mini series, which is going to be mostly about that reinforcement and application of concepts. All right. See you next week on the LeaderLink Podcast.